Good evening and welcome to Legal Tech Live. I'm your host, Nick Rishwain, and I'm here with a dear friend tonight, Erin Levine of Hello Divorce. Thank you, Erin, for agreeing for your first full-time interview on the show. You've acted as a guest host on the show, but we're talking about Hello Divorce tonight. Thanks for coming. It's good to see you. For those who are tuning in, Erin Levine has spent 15 years advising clients, litigating, negotiating, and mediating contested and cooperative divorces and running a respected boutique family law firm. That's the Levine Family Law Firm in the Bay Area. And in the last, I think it's now 4 years that I've known you. It was 2017 when you started Hello Divorce?
Yep, as part of the law firm back then, yes.
As part of the law firm. So you've been a practicing family law attorney. You became a LegalTech founder, and there was a kind of a combination of the two for a while. Let's start from when you decided that you needed some alternative to the family law and why you started thinking about developing Hello Divorce as initially as an additional aspect of the law firm, but then as a separate company.
Sure. And it is great to be back here. I never thought you would have me on again after my co-host, which I thought I did a great job, but then I kept asking to talk about it again, about getting back on the
you
show,
really
and you just kept putting me off. So This is great.
Sure. This will probably go on, everybody, so get used to this. This has been going on since the day we met.
One other thing I wanted to point out was that, and it could just be it's late in the week and late in the night, but when you did the countdown for me just before we went live, and you put up 3 fingers, it was actually 4.
Did I do 4?
It kind of threw me off. Yeah.
Well, I know. My counting's never been very good, so I'm glad that threw you off. This is now streaming live on Facebook as well, so we'll have more.
Uh-oh. Where'd you go? The host is gone. Either that or I'm gone. Where is he? Oh, it says, yeah, Chris. So we can talk about him because it appears I'm the only panelist in the moment. Jeez. Hi, Natalie. Well, there he is. What the heck happened?
I have no idea. I have no
Very
idea.
professional.
So professional. Hello, Natalie. I'm so sorry about that.
No, but
this is perfect for you. Like, this would only happen with you, and has only ever happened with you.
And now I get to spend the next few weeks making fun of you for it.
Make fun of me for it. Yeah. Make fun of me, blame me. That's fine. Please tell us about how your company came to be.
Sure.
And I'm sure you'll insult me during that as well.
I'll try to find a way.
Yeah.
No, but really, this is the most excited I've been around a podcast in a long time. And that's because, there may be listeners that are new, but a lot of the listeners are community. And so I really want to make it about you too. And to the extent that you have questions, I don't want to repeat all the stuff that you've all heard me say. So, but I think it is helpful to sort of rewind a little bit because it's been a little while since we had that initial idea in 2017. And basically what happened is I started really thinking a lot about how broken divorce is in this country and how outdated the model is and toxic, and how it was just destroying people I knew and loved, themselves, their spouses, their children, financially and emotionally. It was just so toxic. And a huge part of that was because of how they were interacting with the legal system. So I've always felt that even well-intentioned lawyers, who I know a lot of, I'd like to think of myself as one as well, we're sort of set up to fail because the process is so complicated. It's really expensive to maintain a practice. We're pitting spouse against spouse from the very beginning, petitioner versus respondent or plaintiff versus defendant. And the only way that's really sort of sanctioned to resolve conflict is to go to court and throw your spouse under the bus. And once we start with that kind of conflict, once we start divorce off that way, where people are already really scared and oftentimes in crisis. And now we add this conflict, it tends to get better. I mean, excuse me, it tends to get worse. And sometimes better at the end if we are able to settle, but usually after people have just been through the ringer and it's just been such a miserable experience. So I recognized from the data we had from our clients and an early design sprint that we did where we interviewed hundreds and hundreds of people who had been through divorce or were considering it or maybe in the divorce process, that most people don't want a messy, long, expensive ordeal.
And this was from your family law, Levine family law group.
That's right.
Clients.
Yeah.
Were you
From our own
surveying them?
practice.
Were you surveying your clients? Is that how you did that? How you figured
We
that
were
out?
early on, we were surveying them about what their goals and interests were around divorce, what they needed from us, what they felt after the divorce they didn't get from us, and then interviewing other people in our community, primarily in the Bay Area, about what they wanted from their divorce attorney, if they wanted a divorce attorney, what they were afraid about, all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when we found that no one really, or most people don't want this long, messy fight till the end divorce, but we just haven't offered them an alternative that is sort of nationally based, that is recognizable, that people felt comfortable with, that they know that there is this alternative to the lawyer up and fight status quo where people have gone through it and they could trust it. And so I set out to change that, and not just the divorce legal process itself, but changing the conversation around divorce and just offering alternatives to, how we're
To the
used to doing
battle.
it.
Yeah, to the battle. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think
And
you did from early on. Of course, I've been an advocate for what you've been doing from an early stage. I really thought it was great. And I thought that the content you guys were putting out from early on was about more of a healing style of dealing with things, more of a positive spin, the conscious uncoupling, things like that, those statements that you were really kind of changing the discussion on this. And I thought that I know I don't often compliment you without also insulting you at the same time. So,
well, you helped me a lot with that early compliment. So you're also patting yourself on the back.
Well, I don't know about that because
about,
you were really advanced in that stuff. Like your Instagram was a huge, and still is. It's an inspirational aspect of your business, and so is the content on your website is very inspirational. And I think that's important to know. I think it's important for other startups to know that resonates. That makes it for a different experience for the user.
well, we learned that really early on, that the legal content was clicked on here and there, but what was clicked on even more was anything that we put out there that helped alleviate the overwhelm and fear. And we also knew that most people consider divorce 2 to 5 years before they actually file. And that the vast majority of filers, usually 70 to 75%, are women. And so it made sense early on to start, I wouldn't say target, but to start putting out content that people felt and saw value in, that they trusted, because we had a very big early challenge, which was convincing people that there is a viable alternative to status quo. Not for everyone, right? Not for that really contested, messy divorce, or when there's like a mental health issue and, someone's fighting out of revenge. But for a lot of people, there all are, or I would say now is an alternative.
Yeah. And so give us that. So having those surveys from your actual customers, your clients, when did you decide there was a technological aspect to this where you could help streamline and make this more efficient and easier, and decide to start adding that aspect of the law firm before it became separate from the firm?
Well, I was really afraid that we were going to get the results from this study and we were going to find that all people really wanted was an app that they wanted just technology. And being a non-technical founder, that was really scary for me. But what we found is that people did want technology to help streamline the process, but that most people also wanted to connect with a human. And more importantly, they wanted to know that if they need legal advice, a lawyer would be there for them. So, so early on, we knew we needed tech. We knew that was going to be a big component, but the goal was just to build a minimal viable product that hopefully worked, and hopefully was profitable. And that's what we started off by doing.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I honestly, being somebody who prefers to have a tech solve it and not want to talk to a person for most things,
Yeah.
this is interesting to me. So people kind of wanted to outsource it, but they wanted to be able to talk to a human. I don't know that I want to deal with this whole thing on my own. So I want to know that I have help available. And if I need the legal assistance, I want to know that's available. That's interesting.
Yeah, and I think part of it is that divorce isn't a transaction. It's
Mhm.
not like a will or, you know, some contract. It's really a process that doesn't happen overnight. And it's a big one. You're dissolving probably the most complex contract of your entire life for most people, along with emotional triggers and a family reorganization and changing every even ritual that you have on a daily basis. So it's a really big deal. And I think that people really want to know that somebody is there for them if they need it.
That's great. And I want to thank Shannon and Mo are here in the Facebook group. Chris and Natalie are in the Zoom. If you have questions and I don't see you on Facebook, please please get them in. Erin knows that she may have to answer some questions live here, so don't
I'd
be
love
afraid to ask.
questions.
Yeah. And when did you decide? Because I remember those early days when it was still part of the law firm, but you figured out that this was going to be a standalone product or service, product and service. How did you make that transition? Because that's not necessarily easy either, especially in the
Yeah.
legal field.
It was a very, very tough decision to make. It was so much easier from, you know, to satisfy regulations, to have people that worked for us that were supervised by lawyers and under the law firm to offer those kind of products and services. But at some point we realized that it was going to be really, really hard to attract the kind of talent that we wanted to bring to the operation because we didn't have big salaries. There
Mhm.
wasn't, we didn't have that. And so we couldn't offer them equity. We couldn't take on capital. All we could really do is offer these, you know, very varied, you know, services and products. But I knew that wasn't going to be all that Hello Divorce was. I knew that every single person who goes through divorce in the United States has to go through the legal process. There's no better hero product. But law is just one piece of the divorce experience. And I knew that ultimately I wanted to help people with all aspects of the uncoupling, the
Mhm.
transitioning from we to me.
Yeah, I really like that. It looks like Natalie's got a comment here. Erin's right. There are such intimate issues in family law. I think this brings out the social nature of humans. Sometimes we want to connect, especially when other parts of our lives are falling apart. And then I'm not going to read the rest of it, Natalie, because that's really long and I'm going to get back to Erin, but I think Erin's reading it as well. Chris Congero's here. Thanks, Chris. And is there a problem? Is there a problem in the law as far as how far you could offer this service if you had kept it within the law firm? Like, I can only offer this service in California if I did?
Yeah, it would have been very, very tricky to offer it in other states. We would have had a lot of issues around advertising, incorporating other services within the Hello Divorce ecosystem. there was like a list of pros and cons, which I can pull up at some point. And I think I remember going over a lot of them with you. Some of them are escaping me because it's Thursday, but it feels like Friday and it's been a long week.
It does.
But
no need to get all of them, but because Natalie did have a question in her really long comment here. She says, what other connective components aside from lead generation to an attorney does Hello Divorce incorporate for families going through this process? That is a good question, Natalie.
Well, so part of it we have now, and part of it we're still building out. In fact, that's what I expect our next platform to really encompass a lot more of the divorce ecosystem. But what we do to start is really focus on alleviating that fear and overwhelm with a lot of video content and written content to help people be able to center themselves, think about what they want their next chapter to look like, as opposed to, seeking revenge on their spouse or focusing on everything that went wrong in the relationship. And that feels really simple. Like, of course, that's what we would do. But it's not what happens usually, because you're talking to friends, you're talking to family, you're reliving moments in your relationship. You might be angry, you might be really sad. And so everybody wants to protect you and give you advice. And so things can easily spin out of control. So the first piece is a lot of content around focusing on yourself, focusing on your goals, how to keep the divorce out of court to the extent possible, and whether or not you might even need a lawyer. Then most of right now, our products and services are really geared towards the divorce legal experience. You can have a DIY where you strictly go through the platform and not talk to any human at all throughout the entire process unless you purchase an a la carte service, all the way up to our cooperative divorce, which is where both parties are actively involved. They use our platform to enter in all their information, to work on resolving conflict, and then a mediator jumps in to really help them through. Right now, we're exploring with lawyer mediators and non-lawyer mediators, people that specialize in ADR or therapists, to see whether or not we really need that legal sort of evaluative approach to make it work. But what we're really focused on now is lots of things come up when you get divorced, right? You might need a new insurance plan. You might be working on your, dating profile. You might need help with a bankruptcy or immigration. There's so many different things that come up with your divorce. So what we're really working on is weaving in other pieces of the divorce ecosystem so that it's there for people if and when they need it and at the right time. So that's
more of
kind
a
of
holistic,
the next level of the journey.
That's a holistic approach beyond the legal aspect.
Right.
Okay, that's cool. So in your now 4 years of doing this, how many, can you give us any idea as to how many people have decoupled through Hello Divorce? Or I don't want you to give away proprietary information, but can you give us maybe some sort of example of how many people have been through the system?
Yeah, we've had a couple thousand through the system, not all paying. A lot of times when we start new states, we give people discounted or free divorces just so that we can see where the friction points are, fix it. Sometimes we're fixing it on the front end, making better tech. Sometimes we're fixing it by having staff members in the back, like running around doing stuff things. So it looks so, beautiful on the front end and the user experience is great, but we're like running around with our heads cut up on the back end.
Okay. That's great. And I expect that some of that is the case, right? Especially in a new state with new rules. And Chris Brown asks, we were joking on Twitter about the local rules, is something that you had brought up in your presentation to Isles the other day. But on a serious note, how do you think the industry can overcome that? Is anyone trying? Are there any proposed uniform or model rules? Solving that can go a long way towards improving A to J and reducing legal expenses. And this is, I remember from law clerk days that local rules in one county significantly different in another county as opposed to,
Yeah.
in just adjoining counties. It's kind of a nightmare. So you did have opinions on this, and is
Yeah.
anyone trying to overcome this?
Well, I should say that the most popular product that we have, it only accounts for 17% of our revenue, but it is by far the most popular product, is our DIY Pro. And that's where people use the platform to create all of their forms and to, really, answer the questions they need to answer before and when, so that they can negotiate a resolution that works for them. And then a staff member jumps in to help file, serve, do all the legal stuff and processing. And there are amazing companies or companies that are emerging out there that, regardless of whether the court accepts fax by, filing by mail or by fax or by email or in person, it doesn't matter, because they act as that third party to get it done, like InfoTrack. Great companies, but the problem is when you're offering a service that most people can afford, we don't have the profit margin to be able to, utilize those services. So in terms of what the system's doing, well, there's a lot of great people, as you know, Chris, like Natalie, and great organizations that are working really hard to change the system. That's not my biggest focus right now. In fact, I'd love to, but really the focus is helping people navigate the system, or when possible, opt out of it in its entirety. But what I can tell you is it is definitely the hardest part, one of the hardest parts of running this company. And the biggest part, and always will be, our legal operations. I hope at one point to make a big enough dent in the access to justice gap, at least in family law, that we have a real say in these things, or that we can help to provide the data to show what actually is happening for consumers. I can also say that at some point, I really would love to have someone on the team who's kind of like that court liaison, who's helping to provide this data, who's sharing what the problems are. But it's really frustrating. I can tell you that in San Francisco, we had this huge issue last year where we were processing hundreds and hundreds of divorces, and we were so proud of that. Most of these people would have been pro per. We took them out of the self-help facilitator's office, all of that stuff to help them navigate the system, and they were moving through very quickly. And in the middle of COVID, San Francisco decides that they're not only, and it's not even written anywhere, they were not only going to no longer accept e-signatures, but divorces that had been filed with e-signatures, that had been accepted and filed by the court, they were going to reject those, and that these people would have to start over with their divorce. So
I remember your outcry about that on Twitter as during COVID. That was a huge deal.
It was so frustrating for a number of levels. I mean, people that have us, that's great, but we took the financial hit because we had to, at first we were like starting over, and then other people couldn't even figure out how to do it. Ultimately, we found out that we could do a signature so long as we stamped it by fax. Like we had a stamp that said signature by fax, and that it couldn't be like dated or authorized, like from DocuSign or HelloSign or anything like that. And ultimately, my team was able to work it out so that we could submit a lot of the rest of the documents and not have to start over, which was amazing. But I mean, it was so frustrating. And so we have so much data on what not just courts are doing from county to county, but even courthouse to courthouse. Like sometimes we know a certain presiding judge in a courthouse, won't take divorces or won't allow waivers of spousal support unless there is, an affirmative declaration that you can support yourself. But then we have to be very careful, right? Because we can't do unauthorized practice of law. Mm-hmm. So while we could easily provide that waiver, we can't without having these people purchase legal coaching time through our second entity. Otherwise, we risk that issue. So it is beyond frustrating. And I know like all of you know that, so I'm not saying anything you don't already know, but I haven't quite figured out how to navigate it. We just have a lot of tools and systems now to make the information that we learn from each of these courthouses available to the entire team and staff.
Excellent. Chris Conjero asks, are you threading, and this goes back to the more holistic approach that you're attempting beyond just the legal element. Are you threading in mediation techniques for only your clients who go through your automated process, or both parties, like a traditional divorce mediation? I'm not sure. You may want to clarify on that, Chris, because I think this would require both parties to mediate it all. Or do you mean that only her client is having a mediator? And Morris Lilienthal asked, what is the cost range of the services offered compared to hiring a lawyer? For example, an uncontested divorce with Hello Divorce versus uncontested with an attorney. Can you give us any insights on that?
Yeah, so, I was very, very skeptical of DIY before I started Hello Divorce. I had seen so many horror stories, so it made me really nervous to offer it. And I recognize that it's not the best option for a lot of people, but what I wanted to put out there was like the best we possibly could. And I think that we've done that in the states that we're in. Our DIY platform is $99. You can use it however long you want. Most people average getting their divorce done with us in 3 to 6 months, as opposed to the national average of 12 to 18 months. The average divorce in the United States is $15,000 per person with an attorney. In states like California, Colorado, New York, the average, if you have children, is upwards of $25,000, $26,000 per person. So our most expensive service is $4,500, and that is our concierge mediation, where people are still using the platform to do all their forms, but there's a mediator that steps in and really helps them to negotiate a deal on all the issues that could come up in their divorce. Outside the DIY Pro, well, I should say the DIY Pro, which is our most popular service, is $1,099 if you pay by flat fee, or you can pay in installments. And that covers all of your forms, all of the content that we get to help you, both legal and, wellness focused content, and then a staff member who jumps in and handles all the procedural hurdles.
Excellent. Hope that answers that, Morris. Conjero had said he beyond the mediation, the what promotes the wellness, that type of stuff, is that being offered just to your customer, or is that just to the party who has hired you, or is that also offered to the other party of a divorce?
To both. In the mediation context, what I found is that in our more like DIY and DIY Pro cases, most spouses had like a doer spouse, one who's more likely to do the paperwork, read the content, push the divorce through. Doesn't necessarily mean it's somebody who wanted the divorce. It's just the person who's willing to take the initiative. And so they generally, are spending a lot more time on the platform. Sometimes they're the only ones who've purchased the service. The second spouse can join if they want to. So what we find is, especially when women sign up for a service, a lot of times men are very relieved that their wives didn't just lawyer up with the most aggressive lawyer in town. And our consumers who sign up are happy to know that there's help available to them if they need it. And last time I looked at our numbers, 35%-ish of people who went through the DIY program ended up hiring one of our lawyers in our second entity, which I'll get to, Chris, for between 30 minutes and 5 hours throughout the entire divorce process. So it's available. The platform itself is available to both parties, not legal coaching, but the platform. And to the extent that the second party is willing to collaborate, we absolutely love that. And we want to
Yeah.
encourage it.
Yeah. And yeah, I'm sorry, your second entity, I missed the question. I thought Chris was asking from the beginning where you split it from the law firm. Apologies, Chris. What's the second entity?
Yeah, so we really struggled with what model to use when we split from the law firm and made Hello Divorce its own corporation. And actually right now we are working on some new, well, obviously we take pretty aggressive approaches when it comes to regulations, but we're working on a couple new ideas as well with one of the most brilliant legal regulators in the world, Crispin Passmore out of the UK. Read what he has to say, listen to him. He's not a lawyer, he works with lawyers, but he's genius. Anyhow, but in the meantime, what we are doing is something that a lot of investors are familiar with. So it made sense for us, which is a dual entity. So that is Hello Divorce, the corporation, contracts with, for now, Levine Family Law Group, the law firm, and lawyers contract directly with the law firm. So if a user purchases time with a legal coach through Hello Divorce, they're actually signing a fee agreement with the law firm. And they're affirmatively requesting that Hello Divorce release their paperwork or anything else that they want to the law firm so that the law firm can provide legal advice. So we try to make the experience as seamless as possible, while still making really clear that you're now technically leaving Hello Divorce and working with a lawyer that is supervised by a lawful law firm. They can pay, schedule, access a lawyer all through the platform, but it's two separate companies.
Excellent. Thank you for that clarity. Chris says,
Yeah,
I love it. It's
hard.
so hard. I'm sure regulatory issues are fun, right? Very fun.
And like the more cases or consumers we work with, like the more attention is drawn to our company. And it's definitely challenging. There's there's a lot of lawyers that work with us and provide legal coaching and mediation to our clients, and absolutely love the fact that they don't have to do any of the systems part. Everything's done for them. They just have to show up for that call on phone or video and really enjoy it. And then there's other lawyers obviously who are not very happy about it.
Yes. We get some of those every once in a while. I get some of those once.
You do, yeah.
I guess I'm a branch of Hello Divorce that I didn't know I was. So we probably should. We're about 34 minutes in here. We've got some folks from the startup community in Facebook here. So I remember the discussions went on a long time about taking on funding or fundraising, and you analyzed it for a long time before accepting it, and then recently, within I think it's been in the last month, you announced a $2 million funding round, and I feel like this is a big issue for just about every startup I've had on the show. In the legal tech space. And so how did you decide to, okay, I've gone as far as I can go, or I need the funding to get to the next level? Kind of give us your analysis there.
Yeah, and happy to help anyone who's raising or considering raising. It was a really hard decision for me. I mean, Nick, I went back and forth and back and forth. I didn't want to raise just for the sake of raising. I only wanted to raise if I felt like it was going to be the right decision for my family, for me, for the company, for consumers. And so, initially I had the good fortune of meeting someone by the name of Sarah Lacey, who's a best-selling author, and she's founded two of her own very successful technology companies. She introduced me to a bunch of wildly successful venture capitalists who I had no idea who they were at the time. Thankfully, I didn't, because I would have had total imposter syndrome and probably never have talked to them. But I talked to them early on and realized that this was like a whole other world that I knew nothing about. And I knew that fundraising was going to be a full-time job, that I was really going to have to learn the game, and and decide if I really wanted to play it. The other thing is the idea of giving up any equity, like especially for a lawyer. I mean, that we don't do that. Like we don't do that. So that just was like terribly terrifying. I was gonna like lose control of the company, and what's the point of doing it? But ultimately what I realized is there were a lot of things that I knew and that I was good at, and a lot of things that I didn't know. And one of the reasons for fundraising was to have access to some of the most incredible minds in business and marketing and technology and product design. I also knew that I wanted to continue to build and expand into different states and introduce a bilingual platform. But there were other things I wanted to do too, like expand this divorce ecosystem and really address the issues and services and products that people need as they're going through divorce.
Mm-hmm.
And that I wouldn't be able to do that without some money. It's just, that would just be way too hard and take way too long. The other thing is I saw this opening in legal tech, and that venture capitalists were starting to not immediately shut us down anytime we did want to talk to someone.
Mm-hmm.
Because those initial conversations, they weren't actually planning on investing. They were just kind of talking to me a little bit about it. But then in 2018 and 19, no one would talk to us. And then it like occurred to me in 2020, oh wait, now people are a lot more interested. They want to know what this is about. So it felt like the timing was really right. I had a strong executive team that would be there to support me, a great operations manager who could run Hello Divorce the best she could while I went out and began to raise. And ultimately, it was great. I had really hoped that a lot of the venture capitalists that support female founders would invest in us, and like they didn't. So that was disappointing. But ultimately, we did get a lot of the investors that we really wanted. First of all, lawyers came in big for us in a really big way. And that was awesome and validating and amazing. Northwestern Mutual came in, which is great because they could bring that financial and insurance back, that we really needed. Light Bank just has access to anyone you could possibly imagine to help. And Cease has a long history of investing in companies all the way through their life cycle. So, and that's probably been the most exciting part in the last month, really working on like shifting from managed chaos, putting out fires, and like that crazy, adrenaline junkie kind of feeling that we had all the time, but also exhausting, to like building out this corporate foundation, really bringing in the great minds and support that we need to make this happen.
Yeah, that's it. The thing that I thought was funny was you talking about the being a lawyer giving up equity was like, so this was going against your grain, right? But in order to grow as rapidly as you'd like to grow and to go into different jurisdictions, different markets, you really needed the funding. The sad thing, and I remember, I think you told me this by text that I found disappointing. As we're doing, you're in this female founder series that I'm doing right now, that those who promote themselves, investors who promote themselves as being pro female founder and wanting to be, they did not get on board here, and that's really it was maddening to me. I think when you told me that, like, that was very disappointing.
I think it's a delicate balance. Like, I think they a lot of times are very, very risk adverse, that they want to take on what they feel is much more like of a company that's likely to succeed, SaaS pure technology. This is a risk, like to be an investor in a legal tech, especially B2C company, you have to have a high tolerance for risk, the leverage that we had, unlike most startups that are raising, is that we were already profitable.
Mhm.
And so that we had customers, we were already profitable, we were able to prove out the market. And I think that's ultimately one of the reasons we got funded, even though, legal tech is still, B2C is still considered, pretty risky.
Pretty risky, yeah. And it really is one of the things that that I've seen a lot of folks on the show. It's generally a straight SaaS product, right? And
Yeah.
you do have a services component to it still, almost by necessity.
At some point we really had to decide, like, would we, which direction would we go? But we really want to solve the problem that most people have, which is that they can't afford nor understand how to get through the divorce legal process. So to do that, at least the only way that we really know how to do it right now is to include people. And there's a lot of companies that do that have been wildly successful. I mean, Stitch Fix, for example, they have stylists and so many others. I mean,
and generally you get a company that grows big enough, and then they bring on their consulting side of it, right? If they were a straight SaaS product, but now they have to offer more customizable services, you can go to almost any big company and find a consulting arm of their company now.
That's true. Yeah.
Which is interesting that's frowned upon in the earlier stages.
And I think, what I did learn too, because I learned a lot about me and our company going through the fundraising process, is that there are a lot of investors who want to get in and just straight do machine learning here. And it's very tempting and very exciting. But, ultimately, we have to decide if that's right. Like, if given the state of the legal system, can we really build that right now? And if so, what would that look like?
Yeah, and there's got to be a balancing act there that as a lawyer that maybe some of those investors aren't necessarily familiar with from the regulatory side.
That's right. Yeah.
So tell us, I don't want to keep you all night. There's a couple of minutes left, but I do want to, usually try and wrap up with, like, what was one of the biggest obstacles and what has been one of your biggest successes? And I know that I put you on the spot for that.
I know. Why would you do that? I asked him over and over again, what are you going to ask me? What are you going to ask me?
Yeah, because then it eliminates the actual conversation. And my whole goal here really is to get, like, Dateline where they start to cry, but that hasn't happened yet.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I'm not really a crier. I wish I was.
No. So maybe just
when I cry,
big obstacle.
it's really a big deal.
It's a big deal. Just like a significant obstacle that, like, you didn't see coming, and it could be recent. It doesn't have to. Certainly you've had plenty of successes, but they have not come easy.
So many obstacles, so many. But what was most recent is transitioning more, like broadening the team, building out the team, and transitioning more into an actual CEO role, which meant that not everyone had total access to me at all times. And then putting people into place and sometimes making mistakes, who could help build out processes and manage. And, it was very challenging for a lot of people because we were so, I wouldn't say laissez-faire, but, like, we were just trying to make things work early on. There wasn't really a standard operating procedure. We were just trying to make things work. And so systematizing, building the corporate foundation, working together more as a team, streamlining our internal communications, having different areas of focus, not just legal operations, was really hard for a lot of people. And I definitely could have managed expectations a lot better. And so, like, that was a big obstacle. It was so much easier for me when I managed a law firm, we had, 8, 10, maybe 12 people at a time, all super close, all working together. The reporting structure was always clear. But it has changed in this. So the other thing is that, like, now I'm employing people that are far more experienced than me in a lot of different areas, business, startups, marketing, finances, content. And so, like, developing my management style has been really challenging, and just working on that every day and trying to do the things that I'm great at and not do the things that I don't like or that I'm not good at, which are a lot.
That's really good. Nobody has shared that aspect, the change in management that you have to do when you move to the next step. That I'm glad you shared that. I haven't heard somebody say that on the show before.
There's a real change in perspective too. Like once you take that money, even if nothing in the business changes right away, like expectations sometimes change within the company, all sorts of stuff. So yeah.
And what's one of the successes that you're most pleased about? You've had some great ones. It's been awesome to watch the company grow. But what is something, maybe it's not one that we know about or we've read about in all the media?
Let's see. One of the successes, I think, building out that, with, of course, the help of a tech company, building out that initial minimum viable product, a web app that hadn't been done before in this space, bringing it to market and having people actually use it and be successful with it. One of the hardest things I've ever had to do after spending my entire savings on building it is retire it. Like we are retiring it, moving to a different system, and then ultimately now building out our platform 2.0, 3.0, whatever you want to call it. But, after analyzing the data, that's the right decision. And so
you had to retire your baby.
Bittersweet. Yeah. Definitely.
That's interesting, but also success at the same time, because it means you're moving to a more systematized process.
It put us on the map. It got the attention that we needed to have no budget for marketing and still be able to bring in enough consumers to test it, see what works, see what doesn't work, and make some money. So
very cool. And where do people find you, Erin, online, if they don't know?
So you can find me on Twitter at hello_divorce. I'm probably gonna change that soon to my actual name. My company is, Instagram and Twitter is at hello divorce. Yes, yeah, absolutely.
And it's hellodivorce.com. For anybody who wants to reach out and find it. And Chris has not a question, just a parting comment for Erin. And I have to read it out loud because this is a podcast as well, Chris, because he knows so little about divorce and he finds it boring. But I've been following for a few years and I love what you're doing. You're solving problems that are hard for us lawyers to solve, and it inspires me. Anyway, keep up the good work and good luck. And thanks for hosting, Nick. So thanks.
Thank you
it really is
so much.
It really is inspiring because it solves I'm biased, but it solves a problem that consumers are facing. So I really appreciate your work in this space. And I thank you for coming on tonight.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks
for listening, guys. Yeah.
Thanks for all the questions, folks. We are off next week. We'll be back the following week with Jacqueline Schaefer of clearbrief.ai.
Yes, fantastic.
So
she's one to watch.
Yes. And she's got huge news after today. So we'll have lots to talk about on her funding as well, fundraising as well. So stay tuned for that as we wrap. We'll still have, I think, 2 or 3 more interviews in the Female Founder series. So stick around. Thanks, Natalie and Erin. I will talk to you when we stop recording.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.